My dear friends, I am extremely excited to introduce this new series. We may find ourselves researching dress codes for certain events, or noticing how unfamiliarity with some dishes may raise insecurities. Growth also implies navigating social settings we may perceive as overwhelming, and this inspired me to introduce a new series on how to polish our presence. We often hear how money can't buy class or style, but have you ever wondered what lies behind these words? Well, dear friends, I am happy to return to one of my years-long companions while I was working on my MPhil thesis at Goldsmiths University of London, Pierre Bourdieu, who, in his monumental work Distinction, explored an extensive framework of references to explain the formation and transmission of tastes among both affluent and working-class families. Interviewing and analyzing families from both backgrounds, Bourdieu noticed key differences not only in education, approach to knowledge, and appreciation of art and culture, but also in the media outlets and music they consumed, the pastimes they engaged in, the language codes in which they expressed themselves, the food and dining rituals they pursued, the interior decor they opted for, the body practices they cultivated, and the fashion they exhibited. I am very excited to welcome you to a new series in which machine learning concepts are introduced through these exact references as analogies. By the end of this series, hopefully we'll gain both guidance and practical tips for a more elegant, connected, reputable, and abundant self. Bourdieu noted distinction descending from what he called the four capitals, which inevitably influence an individual's start in life and the ease with which they can access and gain relevance in various social circles. Cultural capital describes the transformation of education, knowledge, and overall erudition as catalysts for economic resources. Social capital amasses connections that can facilitate legitimacy in areas of interest or influence the acquisition of economic benefit. Symbolic capital implies the transformation of prestige or honor into resources. Economic capital can be converted into money or property rights. However, as we can see, all three of the previous capitals inevitably become pipelines for economic resources. The four capitals shall compose the dimensions of a machine learning model. In machine learning, a dimension describes attributes that characterize data sets. Since all of our videos start with introspection and an audit of strengths and areas for further improvement, I propose we let an outlook on our cultural capital introduce supervised learning, a paradigm through which our model works with labeled data. Cultural capital, the first dimension. In describing an ML model, the first step is preparing our data. To Bourdieu, cultural capital encompasses an embodied state, the knowledge we can claim, an objectified state, for example, a private library we have access to, and an institutionalized state, the honors associated with our educational level. So what exactly should we focus on? Data cleaning may include subjects that don't distinguish us from average individuals, such as recognizing the most influential world leaders or celebrities. Low-variance features are areas or disciplines to which our everyday life facilitates no concrete growth, unlike geopolitics, economics, technology, or subjects frequently explored in public discourse. Outliers are niche topics we exceptionally master, such as a thesis on a particular historical event. Missing values are disciplines or subjects on which we cannot claim any knowledge. To fill blind spots, ML uses imputers. In life, let's go for the unique elegance of humbleness, sincerity, and curiosity, which can also create new friendships by simply admitting we have limited or no knowledge of a certain subject, but we're very interested in learning about it and would appreciate any information. Feature importance. Some areas might overlap, as cultural literacy may also facilitate taste discernment. Machine learning explores this prospect through correlation. Building a reliable ML model demands selecting the relevant data, which leads to analyzing feature importance. Channeling our cultural capital toward a more elegant aura leads to focusing not only on our knowledge and references, but also on speech and aesthetic appreciation. The recursive feature. Elimination allows us to discern the depth or width to which we choose to familiarize ourselves with a topic. In our data selection, we can be significantly helped by mutual information, how features reveal each other's impact. For example, critical thinking can inevitably lead toward an interdisciplinary approach on a subject. However, the integration of cultural literacy in our aura requires an outlook on what areas, disciplines, or references to prioritize. In machine learning, such an exercise leads to data scaling, which can be performed through the following methods. Normalization, which mirrors critical thinking and openness to new subjects or interpretations. Standardization, which maintains focus on the subjects we're interested in. What algorithms to refine our taste? Classification allows us discernment between solid references and hypes, while regression could help us visualize how all our efforts would alchemize into a coherent persona. Support vector machines, SVM, imply finding optimal boundaries, best applied to speech, selecting appropriate vocabulary, refining cadence, and balancing precision and restraint over verbosity. Polynomial regression reflects how the accumulation of knowledge opens an extensive development of taste toward critical abilities. Think of the evolution from consumption to connoisseurship to symbolic fluency. K-nearest neighbors, KNN, classifies new data by similarity. In life, KNN can help us better understand our taste, inviting us to group items we like by clout, texture, or design, great for spatial curation. Decision trees unfold all possible outcomes of a decision, recreating the uncomfortable but useful practice of recording yourself, reading one paragraph aloud daily to check clarity, rhythm, breath, and filler word tendencies. Random forests capture multiple perspectives, such as reading critical reviews rather than only artist interviews when planning to attend an exhibition. Neural networks recreate the human brain's capacity to recognize patterns. In our work to increase attention span and elevate vocabulary, neural networks reflect our focus on capturing intended meaning behind nuances and long-form syntax. Magazines such as The New Yorker, The Atlantic, and the London Review of Books are top choices. Generative adversarial networks, GANs, facilitate insights through simulations, providing a bountiful strategy to harmonize contrasts and idiosyncrasies, with a powerful impact on your unique perspective and personal branding. A cake dataset analogy. A cake dataset can help our model learn, just like we prepare ourselves for an event by writing down moments, dishes, or encounters awaiting us and doing research. Such datasets can be defined as follows. Make classification. Do I find any appeal in this topic? Make regression. How could this conversation evolve if I approach this topic? Key parameters. N samples. Scenarios or acquaintances that can develop our cultural capital. N features. Subjects or disciplines raising our interest. N informative. Topics or disciplines we are most interested in. Noise. Information void of cultural significance, such as tabloids or fake news. Random_state. The extent to which our intellectual curiosity and ability to open new angles for knowledge can be applied across disciplines. We split data, 80% training, 20% testing. Training, model.fit, can be set on our own life experience on how events or conversations unfold. Testing, model.predict, is conducted on what awaits us at openings, lectures, or social gatherings. Model evaluation. R², how much variance we can explain in our cultural background given our specialization and expertise. MSE highlights the weight of large errors, such as exploring current events without prior research into historical factors that led to the present context. MAE points out sensitivity to outliers, such as biases we might nurture, like believing contemporary art lacks cultural value compared with works from other historical periods. Classification report gives performance metrics like precision in identifying originality in an art piece and recall in estimating its cultural impact. Cross-validation tests consistency across domains, from art to gastronomy. Every model benefits from calibration, attained by adjusting the learning rate, frequency of moves, and epoch, number of reviews. Let's say we want to learn about an art movement, such as Impressionism. The learning rate highlights how many artists we must study to understand the ideology and technical complexity behind the movement. The epoch points out how many times we should review our entire knowledge base to confirm we can actually speak about the movement. Our results may also be affected by the training data. In machine learning, models may be vulnerable to Gini impurity, or the frequency with which an element might be mislabeled, and entropy, which measures disorder or uncertainty within the dataset. Genie impurity is like mistaking Roquefort for Gorgonzola because both have an intense smell. Entropy takes the form of using inadequate references or frameworks for assessing a cultural product, such as applying analogy practices for chocolate tasting. Regression models expose us to bias error, oversimplified assumptions, such as believing pop culture references are enough to understand contemporary art, or variance, the tendency to drop many cultural references without going in depth on any. Bias leads to underfitting or refusing to show interest in critical reviews, while variance leads to overfitting or accumulating knowledge without reflecting on what resonates with us. Using lasso and ridge regularization can help maintain low bias and low variance. Lasso keeps only the most important traits, helping us prioritize high-impact predictors. Not a drinker? The lasso focuses our knowledge on concepts such as terroir and main wine regions without delving into tasting notes. Ridge keeps all traits but balances their weight, ideal when multiple predictors contribute to an outcome. Yes, we cover Italian, French, Dutch, and Spanish maestros when studying Baroque art. An extensive approach to taste. Just as taste discernment and critical thinking benefit from integrating more perspectives, our model can combine the performance of more than one algorithm through three main ensemble learning methods. Bagging trains subsets independently, then averages results. Think of assessing our own evolution through Bourdieu's references for a holistic approach to taste and savoir-vivre, pastimes, vacations, media consumption, music, food and dining, interior decor, language use, fashion, education style, art preferences, and body practices. Boosting implies sequential learning, where each model corrects the last. Speech refinement and intellectual complexity provide the best imagery. We start with practical knowledge to establish a coherent basis for our ideas. Works on rhetoric, such as Mark Forsyth's How to Speak Like a Leader, prepare us for abstract debate, correct possible biases, and challenge our argumentation and ability to defend ideas. We then continue with Judith Humphrey's How to Speak Like a Leader, further refining eloquence into inspiration and empowerment. Stacking trains and combines models into a meta-learner. A model may start unfamiliar with art history. In real life, the meta-learner mirrors our evolution toward connoisseurship, from befriending art and understanding aesthetics to acquiring symbolic literacy. E. H. Gombrich's The Story of Art could provide our foundation. Another model trains our perception. John Berger's Ways of Seeing is a solid guide. A third model captures the pulse of contemporary art, just like indulging in Apollo magazine, Frieze, the art newspaper, or Lapham's Quarterly. The ultimate goal of cultural literacy and taste discernment is not merely to make a good impression in certain circles, but to enrich our own lives through a more complex appreciation of beauty. Our continuous receptivity to knowledge and immersion in aesthetically and intellectually stimulating resources allows us to gradually shift from taste to elevating an aura for ourselves. ML captures such evolution through model.transform. The exploration that highlights our individuality and creates our aura is favored by mutual information. What traits reveal about each other? Additionally, once a certain aesthetic or school of thought catches our attention, permutation importance can highlight whether the appeal persists across various life spheres or applications.